This is Kevin Pascal, and you are tuned into the Hidden Neuron podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, you'll hear me talk with Mary Imasuen. She's the host of the FinTech X podcast. She's also the host of the Knobcast, the podcast by BitNob, the Bitcoin saving app. Mary is also a lawyer and she's a finance person. We talked about finance, we talked about money mindset, we talked about a host of trendy stuff like the blockchain, NFTs, the Metaverse, and cryptos. We talked about all those things. Also, I'll be recording an AMA episode as my last episode of the year. So if you want to ask me any questions, you can ask me anything. Head over to hintedneuron.com/ask and you see an anonymous form there. You could be able to ask me anything at all. Even if it's something you want me to comment on, just fill the form, ask me questions, and I would address those things on the podcast. If you have any questions, comment, concerns, don't forget to reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter at hintedneuron. Also, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, follow my podcast on Spotify. And now, here's my conversation with Mary Imasuen. I'm here with Mary Imasuen. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yes. So I've been talking about doing this podcast, I think since last month, and I've delayed because I'm grateful I delayed because I'm happy I delayed because it gave me more time to do my research and find so many new things to talk about with you. So I'm really excited about this talk. We'll be talking about money, finance, crypto, blockchain, and a bunch of other things. So I would leave the floor open for you, Mary, to introduce yourself. Just say anything you want to say about yourself in probably just like a few seconds.
Okay. So hi, my name is Mary Victoria Imasuen, and I am a lawyer by profession. But I do a lot of things at the same time. But majorly what I talk about is, I talk a lot about money and how you can embody the rich vibe and how millennials and Gen Z can start making money by working on their mindset and also putting in the strategies that will help them create more money and increase more overflow in their life and business. I'm a podcaster as well. So I have a podcast called the FinTech X, which focuses on the FinTech experience and also personal finance. And I am also the host of the Knobcast, which is a podcast by BitNob. It's all about simplifying Bitcoin for Africans. And I'm the founder of Relish Abundance, which is a newsletter on personal finance and just living the rich vibe.
Yeah. So something I just found out now, or I think one thing I just discovered from what you were saying is that I did not know about this newsletter. I mean, I know about the other podcast and I do listen to them once in a while, but I never knew about the newsletter. I'll check that out later. So I'm interested in what you said about you being a lawyer. So you have a law background and you transitioned into finance. So what you probably do now is mostly around the finance space, yeah?
So I do a lot around finance and tech, actually. So when I studied law, I picked up a lot of finance related courses, in like the legal side of some finance related course. Like I did law of banking, law of insurance, capital market law, Islamic law of banking and finance. So I like to call myself double qualified because I know both the conventional version of finance and also the Islamic version of finance. So I kind of fused those two in. But then when I started like my career as a lawyer, I got more interested in tech. And yeah, I guess the finance aspect of tech kind of drew me in.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. It means you've always been, maybe, would I use the word obsessed with finance and tech or something? Would you say you're obsessed or you're just really enthusiastic about it?
So my family is actually very tech driven. I had my first computer when I was 4 years old. So Yeah. So it was my dad actually made sure that we were very in tune with technology. So like even before I started university, I've been working with my dad in his tech company. So I've been in it for a very long time. So it is my life right now.
Yeah. So I'm interested in the tech company, your dad's tech company. What company was that?
Oh, so it's called Narrowgate Information Technology Limited. So we mainly focus on creating databases, setting up remote monitoring systems. So when I started, working closely with my dad, I did a lot of the, design. I also handled, administration, which is really interesting. Maybe that's why I'm very into business right now. So handled a bit of administration, taught classes. Like I was just full into it, man.
Yeah, all those sound interesting. Yeah. So, when you like finish your university, you studied law. Yeah. Did you actually know that you probably would not use this law degree?
Oh, that is a
Or
really good question. That's a very good question. So when I was in 500 level, my project was on on determining whether it is possible to have a uniform stock market index. It's uniform Islamic stock market index. So
yeah,
after I wrote my project, I was like, man, I want to be a fund manager at Lotus Capital, which is
yeah,
yeah, which is back then, like Islamic finance was reigning during Sanusi's time. So I was like literally
yeah,
obsessed with that aspect of finance. So I didn't really see myself as a lawyer that would be, going to court and stuff. But as situation would have it, when I did my NYSC, I was sent to a human rights office. But then it was what really changed everything for me was when I attended my first tech event, which was AFDisrupt, 2019. I can't ever forget that day because that was the time I realized that, hey, I could find a place for myself in tech. And back then, not many lawyers were like, they never saw themselves as like they never saw it was possible for them to like set up a career in law and tech. So when I was sitting through like in the conference, when I was at the conference and I was listening to the speaker speaking, I was like, hey, this is something I could do. This is an area that I could get into. Because honestly, I wanted to be on the fun side. Because
yeah, yeah,
I honestly don't see myself like going through papers and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
But I really wanted to do something fun and I loved how laid back and easygoing tech was. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're just very chill. They don't have anything to do because there's a lot of work that goes into tech, but like,
yeah, sure.
it's not a tense environment like the way, the legal space is like. I mean, that's my perspective. Some people may argue with me, but the legal space can be boring and very intense and pretentious. Sorry to all lawyers out there. But like, I love the tech space because they were very open.
So, so you talked about Islamic finance, and it's something I've never heard before, to be honest. And maybe I should feel guilty about that one. So I've never really heard about Islamic finance before. What was it about? Did the Islams have a particular way of accounting for money or their own mindset towards money?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So, well, we call it Islamic finance, but according to the rules and regulations around Islamic finance, if allow me to use that word, we actually use the term non-interest financing. So under Islamic law, the use of interest is actually forbidden, right? It's called riba. Or riba or usury. So interest is forbidden. And with that in mind, a lot of the conventional banking practices or investment practices are contrary to the provisions of the Quran. So because of that, a lot of the, financial practices have to change and be in alignment with the provisions of the Quran. So Islamic law basically is just, or Islamic finance is basically finance, but the kind of finance that is in line with the provisions of the Quran and the Hadith as well.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I think that's something new I just learned, and thank you very much for that piece of information. So yeah,
You're welcome.
you've always talked about money mindset, and there's something we had one conversation earlier when we first met. We talked about something. You talked about something around dating your money, and something that I found interesting because I I used to have this close connection with my money before, but I think it just I got to a point where I could not just account for my money anymore, or I just could not really do my own personal finance in the way I used to do back then when I probably started making money. So what you told me that day really caught my interest, and it made me feel guilty in a way that I lost touch with how I used to account for money. So I just want you to talk about that, your own mindset towards money and the dating your money philosophy or something.
Okay. So I just really love talking about this aspect of finance because not many people talk about it. So, when it comes to money, we see it more like, oh, it's just is this, we put it on a pedestal, like, oh, is this very important thing? Without it, I can't do X, Y, Z. And we kind of have like a very toxic relationship with our money. We are happy when it comes, and we are happy when the money comes, but then we absolutely hate it when it's not around. Or we say ugly things about money. We say ugly things about money, like we say things like, oh, I don't want to be rich because if I'm rich, I'll be arrogant or I'll treat people badly because all rich people are bad. Or we say things like, man, money's a bitch. And we just say really horrible things about money. And then the ironic part about it all is that we say all these things and do all these things. But deep down, we want more money, and money's like, yo, why are you so fucking toxic? Do you want me to stay or do you want me to go? Like, cause I can't understand your body language anymore. So the idea behind dating your money, the idea behind dating your money is more like, it's more like trying to, like, it's just the way you would date a girl, right? Or, date a guy, whoever is listening. When you go on a date with someone, or you kind of, you're into someone, you're like, oh man, this guy is fine, or this girl is fine. What do? Sometimes you stalk them. You're like, oh, what is she about? What is he about? You want to know more about them. You are like, you think about them 24/7. And it's not like you don't think about them in a, oh my gosh, what are they doing? What are they with someone else? You don't think of them that way. You're like, oh, their hair is just so silky. Like, oh, their beautiful eyes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she looked at me today. Those kind of like stuff. And when you get to know this person, you tend to be closer to it. You tend to create space for that person in your life. So it's like, oh, every morning you feel like calling the person and checking up on the person. How are you doing? Have you eaten? You send text messages. They send text messages back. It goes on and on and on. I mean, you know the drill, when it comes to dating and going out and stuff. Yeah. So many of us, what we do so if we were to personify money, many of us treat money badly. We don't look at our finances. We don't care how much it is. I mean, someone once told me that they're afraid to check their bank balance. That's like, I'm afraid to like check on my girl or check on my guy. Like, I'm just so afraid. Like, oh my gosh, they're probably gonna bite or bark at me. They're gonna nag. Like, so, when you personify money that way and you're like, oh, I don't want to check my bank account, or, oh, money's just so cruel, or, I mean, it's never around when I need it. All I see is debit alert. When you say all of that, it's like you telling your girlfriend that, oh, you're fat. I don't like the way you look. The sex might be nice, but like, I can't see a future with you. Do you get what I mean? So
Yeah.
why
Yeah, sure.
would such a person want to stay? Would such a person want to stay with you? Absolutely not. So if you treat your money badly, right, your money won't stay with you. That's why, when you talk to people and you see that the people who speak the worst things about money, whether consciously or unconsciously, are the people who don't have any of it or have lack of it, or the money comes in drops, like one drop at a time. And they wonder, why is it like that? Like, but the truth is, like, why would anybody or anything want to be with you if you say ugly things about it? So the term dating your money is like coming back and like realigning yourself to have a better relationship with your money. That means speaking better about it, getting to know your money more, being very clear about your financial standings and doing what you have to do in order to get back on track. And I'm not just talking about saving or investing. I'm talking about clearing the emotional and mental trauma that you have around money, which was, 100% probably wasn't your fault. I mean, our parents didn't know any better. They came and say, why are you wasting food? Why are you wasting money? Why are you doing this? Like, we were brought up with that, negative consciousness about money. Exactly. So it's when you start. So dating your money involves you working on these limiting beliefs, and they could be very glaring limiting beliefs like, money's never around. And they could be even subtle limiting beliefs like, I want to be filthy rich. And when you say that, you think that, oh, I'm not saying anything bad, but in actual fact is your body will never align with something that is bad. So the minute you say, I want to be filthy rich, your body is like, filthy, that filthy is disgusting. That means I will try, your body will then say, I'll do everything I can to make sure that I do not engage myself with anything disgusting, whether it is money or not. Right? So you're literally pushing money away by saying, I want to be filthy rich. Or they will now ask you questions like, hey, how's work? How's everything? And you're now like, man, I'm hustling, or I'm pushing it. And by saying things like that, what you're literally saying is that obtaining money is hard. I need to struggle. I need to push hard. I need to do extra hours before I can actually have money that makes sense. But you won't know these things until you come and you are conscious about these behaviors and these actions and the things that you're saying and how it directly and indirectly relates to your money.
Yeah, that's a whole lot. Like a whole lot you just said. The first thing about like our mindset towards money and like the scarcity mindset and that you talked about. So, I mean, it's something that I do too. Some of the things that you mentioned are things that I do too. Like in the instance of, I'm scared to check my bank balance. I'm scared to check my crypto accounts. I'm just like, I don't keep tabs on all these things because I really don't know. I don't want to scare myself. I like how do they put it? The less you know, the better. What you don't know or what you don't know would not kill you. Something like that. So I'm like, I don't want to know how much is there. Like whenever I see insufficient balance, okay, I know that the money has finished. Something like that. So yeah, what you said is really interesting, and it's something that I do too. So when I know you were not probably born with all this knowledge, yeah, and all this knowledge about finance and money. So when did you start to like develop the consciousness, like you said? Like when did you start to become conscious of these things and learn about them?
All right. So that's a really good question. Where do I start from? So I think it probably started when I don't know. I'm just trying to pick a good part because a lot of things happened along the way that made me realize that something had to change. But I would say if I were to like put a date or a period or time, I think everything started with me working on dealing with my major limiting belief. And that was sometime in 2015. So, I couldn't, 2015 or 2016, around about that time. So, I didn't go to law school with my, my course mates. So I went a year after, and that was a very depressing time. And I couldn't go because, there were some financial disappointments at the time. So I was so pissed and so upset, like, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? This is not fair, da 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 da. And then I just decided then and there that, hey, I'm not going to allow money to dictate, or money or the lack of it to dictate, my life anymore. Like, I don't want that to ever happen to me ever again. And so I was thinking of things I could do to start making money on my own. Not necessarily to like pay law school fees or anything, but I just really wanted to, make a major change and be like, no, money's not going to dictate how I want to live. So I started with graphic design. So I would design like every single day. I wanted to be like a, designer for book covers, because ebooks were like really popular then. So I was designing all these ebook covers, and putting them up on, my Facebook, because Facebook was like the predominant social media platform at the time. So one day there's this girl, she saw my work and she was like, hey, I want to hire you to design, my logo. And I was like, oh, awesome. Yeah, sure. I'll definitely do it. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest, because like that was my first ever gig. So I just gave a rate. So she paid, and that was the first time I got paid for, work online. And then my sister, because at that time while I was designing, I also started writing like, posts and articles. And my sister was like, oh, you're a really great writer. Why don't you, start offering writing as a service that people can pay you for? At that time, I was a contributor at Huffington Post. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, that sounds really good. But I'm afraid that if I start making money from writing, I'm afraid that the money won't be put into good use. So that was my first major limiting belief around money. And so that night, my sister like gave me a pep talk, and she was like, oh, you need to, like, it doesn't really matter. What's important is that you're actually earning money from this thing, and you're actually being rewarded for what you're doing. And I was like, okay. So at that point in time, I had this major mindset shift, and I was like, okay, let me just go for it. And that was the first time unconsciously I witnessed the power of, working on your money mindset. And that was just one aspect that I shifted that changed the trajectory forever. In about 6 months, I was making like crazy money. Like I made $1,000 in 3 days. I had clients reaching out to me. I never promoted anything. Like, I didn't promote shit. Yeah. I didn't have to go and sign up to Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. Somehow people were just noticing me, and they were just paying money. And I would just be like, oh, okay, here, pay $200 for this article and $300 for this. And I was just literally calling like huge sums of money at the time. And they were like, sure, send me the link, this, that. So I had like an overflow of money come in. And then I found myself like doing major like stuff in my life. But I only shifted one aspect of my money mindset. I did not know how to hold money. So the money came, it was being used for good things, and then it disappeared afterwards. So fast forward to law school. I came to law school, and, one day during externship, which is like the internship, period, let me put it that way. So it's like doing the practicals of law, right? So during externship, my friend was like, you should try opening a mutual funds and stuff like that. And during that period, I had relationship issues, and I was so desperate to try and solve my relationship problems. So in that desperation, I came across this relationship coach. I know it sounds like, how does this even relate to money? But I'm getting there. So I came across this relationship coach, and she was talking about how to shift your mindset in order to attract your soulmate and all that. And I was like, oh, okay, this seems really cool. So I started working on those aspects of my mindset to try and solve my relationship problem. And as I was doing that and practicing the process and the tips and the tricks, I came across her twin sister. So her twin sister is also a coach, but she's a money coach. Her name is Genevieve Rackham, and one of the people that I love following when it comes to money. And so I was like, okay, so I understand the relationship aspect. Let me also learn from her sister who uses the principles of law of attraction and money. And so from her sister, I was able to now use these same tools that I learned from relationships or bettering my relationship to money. And I found that there was like this connection between shifting your mindset, building better relationships, clearing money blocks, and all those kind of things. And I sort of integrated all that into my life. The relationship ended, by the way, so it didn't work. But what happened was that I started having it started leading me to something even better, because I now started growing more aware of my money and my finances. So as my mindset started shifting, I started coming across books, and the book that changed my life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's where I got into the investment aspect, and understanding where to put your money, and understanding assets and liabilities. So all these things along the way and the practical aspects, I was able to incorporate that in money. And I found myself going deeper into understanding the energy or the energetics around money. And that's how I came to where I am today.
All those are interesting. And it seems you have a long journey and an interesting story. I love stories a lot. And I like people who have so many interesting stories to tell about what brought about certain changes or aspects in their life, and that's interesting. So, you mentioned about investing. So, I think first of all, because there's something I wanted to tell you. There's something I was talking about the other day. I was kind of thinking about the history of money, maybe the concept of money, just from history. We had trade by barter, and then we had commodity money. Commodity money in the sense that people were using something like cowries or wheat and other kind of shells as money. And then we had metallic money, maybe coins and all those stuff. And then we had paper money. We now had centralized digital money, just our money is now ones and zeros inside the computer. And now, presently, we have an evolving decentralized digital money in the crypto space. So I was thinking about all these things, and then it was interesting to me. Actually, my own point was to know what the next big thing might be, or what the next concept of money might be. But let's just center on was mainstream right now. Crypto is mainstream right now. First of all, I really like to talk about blockchain as a whole, because a lot of people have this misconception about the blockchain being crypto. So when we talk about the blockchain, people's mind just go to cryptocurrencies. And probably when we talk about cryptocurrencies, people's mind just goes to BTC and Ethereum, just the biggest things. So I don't know if you can help us maybe break it down. What is blockchain as a whole, and where does crypto come in inside that blockchain?
Okay, awesome. And it's interesting you say this, because that is literally the next episode that's coming up on the Knobcast. But let me just break it down. So I understand that the crypto space can be a little confusing, but look at it this way: we have the mechanism, right? What's happening in the background, the mechanism behind Bitcoin or even any other cryptocurrency is the blockchain. So it's the blockchain is not the money, it is the mechanism behind the money. And Bitcoin and Ethereum and the likes, they are the currencies. They are the ones that are used as medium of exchange or store of value. So to describe what the blockchain is and how it works is, think of it this way. I love to put it in this simple mode. So just imagine that you have a box, and inside that box you put in all the transaction information. So let's say I and Kelvin, we want to, like, I want to give Kelvin money, and I want to give him like $100. So that is information, that is data that I'm putting inside our box. So I and Kelvin, we share this box. So I'm putting this information that Mary, I want to give $100 to Kelvin, and I'm putting that information in the box. Kelvin is like, yeah, I receive this $100 that Mary gave me on so-and-so date. And I already have it in my wallet right now. And he puts that information in the box. So 3 months down the line, if we're like, if I now tell Kelvin that, hey, Kelvin, actually, I gave you $200 by accident. Can you give me the $100? Kelvin can easily go back to the box, and like, we can verify that information if it's really true. And when we go to our respective box, we'll now see that, oh, according to the data that's in this box, Mary only gave Kelvin $100 on so-and-so date, and that $100 entered Kelvin's wallet on so-and-so date on so-and-so time. So that box is the block. So now every transaction that takes place is connected with a chain of so many other blocks that are in existence. So that's why it's called the blockchain, right? So it's just a system, or what they like calling, it's called a ledger, like a place where all this data of our transaction is being stored. So that is the mechanism behind cryptocurrencies. Just like the way when we go to the bank and we withdraw money, that information is being stored in the bank's database. But this time with cryptocurrency, that database is not centralized. It's not within one person's control. It is now open to the public for people to know that, hey, these transactions took place. It may not show your name, but it shows that, hey, these particular transactions took place. And that's the beauty about blockchain, is because it keeps everything transparent. And if I and Kelvin have a problem with money, we can always go back to the blockchain to verify the data that was stored on the blockchain to be sure when the transaction took place and how much was exchanged. So that is the blockchain. So I love describing it that way. So when you have that picture in your mind, you know that every single transaction that took place in the crypto space is being stored in these small blocks. And one thing about these blocks is that you can't go and remove the data that was inside a block. If you can't alter the data as well, because anything done to the data, it is recorded in the blockchain as well. So there's no way you can escape. But in the bank, like, you can go to the bank and the teller could make a mistake and write 200 naira instead of 300. And there's no way you can verify that there was a problem or there was a mistake anywhere. You'd just be like, these bank people again. Maybe it was all these deductions. Like, there's no way you can verify that information. But with the blockchain, you can always verify the information. That's why it's a lot more secure than what we have in the centralized space. That is the space that is controlled by the banks and the central bank. So the blockchain literally like runs on its own. So it's self-governed. It is safe, and people can't alter the information in there. And it also helps protect your privacy. So although we know other people can see like the transactions, like, we don't know the people behind it. So it keeps us all anonymous, which is great. So that is basically the mechanism behind the cryptocurrencies itself. So we have different type of cryptocurrencies in existence right now. The very popular ones are Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Bitcoin and Ethereum, although they are similar in terms of it being like can be a store of value or, an investment means, they have like different, how do I put it? So Bitcoin was created for the purpose of ensuring financial independence, or rather financial freedom. You are independent from the control of the centralized system, that is the central bank and the banking system or the government. which makes it like that, it's not like here, like, for example, we've heard a lot of cases happening in Nigeria where the central bank comes in, freezes your account, because they can identify you. They know that you are connected to a specific set of numbers, which is your BVN. And so they could just, whatever account that's attached to your BVN, they could come and close it or freeze your account. But with the decentralized space, there's nobody, because it's not being controlled by a central body. There's no way the government or anybody can go in and close your crypto accounts. So it gives you that sense of independence, and also financial autonomy. So, but with Ethereum, Ethereum is a little different. Ethereum makes use of what we call smart contracts. So, these smart contracts, they're like, how do I put it? All the data, like the exchange, whatever it was exchanged, is written in that digital contracts, and it is like it self executes. So that makes it a little different from Bitcoin, because Bitcoin doesn't have a smart contract. It works basically with the blockchain. But Ethereum, it works with the blockchain, but it makes use of smart contracts instead. So, and then we also have several other coins. So usually each coin is created with a specific project or a purpose in mind. So, for example, I don't know, are you familiar with the Brave browser? So with the Brave browser, they have a specific coin.
Yeah, sure.
No, I was asking. Okay, yeah, sure. So the Brave browser, I don't know if anyone has used it. It's very different from Chrome. So with the Brave browser, you can be watching YouTube and you won't even see a single ad, because they feel it was created for the purpose of having people to also benefit from the returns that people make from ads, right? They also wanted, like, I'm here, I'm watching this ad, and people paid for this ad, but I also want to have my share out of watching this ad as well, because you guys are taking my time, right? So Brave was created for, like, they have this coin called BET, or BET, is it BET or BAT? I can't really remember. But the aim or the behind the coin is to ensure that people. Okay, so the aim behind the coin is to ensure that people, one, privacy, then two, that people literally benefit from the ads that are being put up there, right? So that's a project associated with the cryptocurrency. We have Cardano that's more into, it's more into like being environmentally friendly, to be more into like helping the society. So every single cryptocurrency has its project behind it. So the reason why people invest in all these different type of cryptocurrencies more often, the best way to invest is literally to go for coins that have a project or an ideal that you believe in. But we also have meme coins, and we have meme coins that actually have no underlying project, like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu. They were just created to mock Bitcoin, and they don't have like a fixed. They don't have so they have unlimited value, and they're extremely volatile. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, there is a mechanism behind all these coins. And the reason why people go after certain coins is because of the projects or the purpose that these coins are associated with. So if you're to, again, like, just to recap, if you hear the word blockchain, just know that it's the technology behind the coin, but not the coin itself. Those are like two different things. I know I kind of went like all over the place, but like, it's really important to have like this understanding of how they all place together.
You really you really made it intuitive. I think it's like explaining like I'm 5. So I think a 5-year-old might listen to this and grab the concept of what a blockchain is and what it does. So yeah, you really made it quite intuitive for anybody. So anybody could listen to this and understand it. So currently,
Awesome.
apart from, like for some people are probably not interested in blockchain right now or the crypto space because they just feel like it's all about money or something. But um I think a lot of people don't understand that the blockchain is beyond just like making money or doing stuff that involves. There are a lot of things that can be done with the blockchain as well. So I don't know if you can talk about things because you write about finance and blockchain and you probably know some key aspect about this space. What do you think are other things that can go on in the blockchain or things that can be done with the blockchain that just not just involve like maybe investing or making money, I guess?
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So a lot of things have been happening recently. And one of the things that's like literally mainstream now is NFTs. So for those who don't know, NFT stands for non-fungible token. So what it actually means is, let me give it another illustration. So you know how if we were to if Kelvin has $1 and I have $1, my $1 and Kelvin's $1 are the same, right? They have the same value. They're literally the same. So that is what we term fungible. So something that is non-fungible is the value of Kevin's $1 is different from the value of my own $1. So with non-fungible tokens, how it works is it could be a graphic, it could be an audio, it could be any creative thing. And the value of that item, it is different from the value of its copy. So if Kelvin, like for example, okay, so this is a podcast episode. So the podcast episode, if we could turn it into an NFT because we have audios that could be made into NFTs. So this podcast episode is valued at, I don't know, let's say 5 Ethereum. Okay. So if this podcast episode is valued at 5 Ethereum, if someone goes and copies this podcast and sells it, the value of the copy is less than the value of the original. They are both the same. You will hear the same audio, the same content, but the copy will be valued less than the original itself. So even though it's the same thing, because one is the original, the other one's a copy, we say that they're non-fungible. So if we now associate that with art, someone drew a picture of the sun. If I now have 5 different pictures of the sun, the first ever picture or version of that sun, it will definitely be more valuable than the remaining copies. So why would why should I be interested in an NFT anyway? So one thing about NFTs is that, they're literally the future. I know we probably heard this a lot, like, oh, this is the future. But like, think of it this way. As an artist, if you have your art put up as an NFT, you're literally protecting the intellectual property of your art. And unlike other artists that will probably put up a painting or a photo and then they don't get royalties when that painting or photo is turned into a watercolor or into a mural or into a mug, when that original art is not like credited financially or not given royalties, the artist literally misses out. But through NFT, the artist is continuously rewarded for the art that he has created. And I think it's a really nice way because I believe that artists are hugely underrated. And I'm very happy that NFTs have come up because now artists can literally have full value of their work. So how do these artists continuously have their royalties? Well, remember I mentioned something about smart contracts.
Yeah.
So because So if you have an art piece that is an NFT, and someone bought the art piece, and that person now sells the art piece to another, you see all this data, the buying, the selling, the reselling, all those data is being stored in a smart contract. So no matter what, the smart contract will always acknowledge the original artist. So after every sale, the artist gets compensation or rather a commission from every sale because he is the original artist.
Wow.
So we have like different types of NFTs out there. So you may be scrolling through Twitter and you see all these, weird or interesting art pieces, and you're like, why are people so devoted, so committed to this? It's because so that increases the value of the art. Really, you see, when you have most of these art pieces or NFTs, they all have like a community behind them. And that actually helps increase the value of the art piece. So think of it like this. You can literally say, I am a huge Da Vinci fan. And like being a huge Da Vinci fan, you can like literally have all his pieces, or a Van Gogh fan, you can have all his pieces. So think of it that way. So I know you said it should be like outside investment, but think of it this way. If I am an art collector, what kind of art would I go after? Won't I go after an art that has this amazing community behind it? Because I know that over time, this art piece is going to blow up because the community is literally fueling the interest behind the art. So it's just an amazing, interesting space, and it's now taking different forms and different dimensions. For example, a day will come, if it's not already here yet, where when you buy land, you're given CFO. So imagine if your land titles was an NFT. You know what that means? That nobody can come and fake your land titles anymore, because it's already, it's in smart contracts and all recorded in the blockchain. No one can come and alter the data in there. That makes it even more secure than even having like a physical document saying that I'm the owner of this land. A day will come when your university certificate will be an NFT. Why? Because you have people who fake certificates or fake their credentials now, because if your university certificate is an NFT, nobody will be able to fake that because everything is recorded in the blockchain. So it's just an amazing, interesting thing that we have right now. So another thing that involves like blockchain, smart contracts, there's also like digital land. So like imagine buying a piece of land in the metaverse. So we're hearing this term metaverse now that's like mainstream, and metaverse really is like the digital, like a digital world, right? So imagine buying land in a digital world, and you're now like the owner of that piece of land, and you will now be like, why would I own land in a digital world? So as more people and more things become more digital, we start spending more time, and it's already happening. We spend more time on our phones. We spend more time on social media. We don't even have to go and see our friend physically anymore. We could just video call them. So we're literally spending more and more time in the digital space. Then why not have a piece of land in the digital space where you can have maybe online cinema, and you and your friends could go and watch a film together virtually, in that space. So it might sound a little strange, but I know that when people come back to this podcast, maybe, 3, 4, 5 years later, they'll now begin to understand that, hey, this thing is actually happening. So now the importance of knowing this early is that the people who make it the biggest are those who go in early. That thing happened with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was very, very cheap. Now it's around like 50 something thousand. When Bitcoin was very, very cheap, those who bought a lot of Bitcoin back then, are now have like made hundreds and thousands of percent on top of their Bitcoin earnings. So just the same way, because all these things are just coming up, it's a great time to start exploring and going into all these things, because by the time it is now fully developed and everybody's in it, like, it might be too late.
Yeah. All those are really, really interesting points. And then you brought up something again, the concept of I like the NFT talk, because it's something you talked about that I did not know before. I did not know that as people keep reselling a certain piece of work, that the original artists get incentives. I didn't know that. And you talked about the metaverse, and the metaverse is something that some listeners have asked me to talk about, but I think you were able to talk about that. And then you talked about owning land in the metaverse. So people who buy land in the metaverse, would they get a commission if people want to? Probably. Imagine I log into the metaverse and I want to build like a virtual house or something. I would have to pay for land space to the original owner of that land, just as it is done in real life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so you just buy land and then start building. So like it's already developing, right? It's gradually developing and it's turning into something. So we don't even know how far it could go. But think of it this way. You own 2 plots of land in the metaverse and you decided to build a house in one. And then you're like, in that house, I have 3 rooms that I want to give out for rent. So as the metaverse now develops and more people are like are now part of the metaverse, a time will come when they have to have a place virtually to lodge. Because you know how it is. Yeah, you know how it is. Like right now, our minds. Okay, for example, if you go back in time, so I've been using social media for a long time, right? Like I've used High Five, I've used Bebo, I've used MySpace, and one thing about those social media platforms, or the continuous use of social media, or what the continuous use of social media platforms does for you, is that your mind starts to associate this online space as, I don't want to use the word reality, but as a convenient way to get in touch with something. That's like, get in touch with someone. For example, now you have great internet connection. It's like, it's a no-brainer to do a video call with a friend instead of, going to physically leave your house and going to meet them, right? Because I mean, there's some days you're like, I can't even bother leaving my house. So a time will come when in the virtual space, it won't make sense for you to stand outside, in a virtual space, just be standing there, right? Sociologically or psychologically, you'd just be like, hey, I need to lodge somewhere. And then your virtual house could be the best place for that person to lodge. So just the same way that they'll pay for like an Airbnb. So they'll go to your house and pay you for the room. And then they stay there. And then you could be like, hey, I offer, virtual breakfast, and you make a virtual breakfast and they pay you for the virtual breakfast. So it's like, gradually, you're starting to associate like normal life in this virtual space. Like I said, it might not make sense now, but like you could take it that far. You can even be like, hey, I want to sell this house, and you can sell that virtual house to buy another house somewhere else. And then you can even sell it, make a profit, and then, like turn it into whatever you like. So it's just, like I said, it can be expanded. It could be like the possibilities are just endless.
Yeah. And I know that these are just like early stages here, and people might be like, oh, would all this be possible? What would people need all these things for? But like, I think it was Gary Chevenok or Gary Vaynerchuk that was saying this thing. He was like, people, the amount of weight that people put on social validation, on things like a blue check mark on Instagram, or a blue check mark on Twitter, like a verified mark on Twitter or Instagram, is a lot. So we have like so much, we take social validation and like virtual validation as a big thing, because a verification mark does not mean anything in real life, but it's a lot on platforms. So when people see all these things, they say, "Oh, why do we need so much stuff? Why do we pay so much attention to all this virtual stuff?" But like, people actually pay attention to these things, and because we are not just like we are not paying attention to it in the sense that we don't see that people actually see these things as really big stuff. And, as time goes on, what is happening in the social space, like the virtual spaces, is what might become more important. Yes. So I, I want to talk about a little, I want to talk a little bit about you. So I
Okay.
heard that you, you are Filipino, yeah? And you said that you actually was more involved in Philippines culture more than Nigerian when you were growing up. So how was that like? Did you grow up in Nigeria, or how, or you got your own Philippine culture here in Nigeria?
Wow. Well, so I am half Filipino. My mom is a Filipino, and I wasn't born in Nigeria. So I think I didn't really know much about Nigeria because my dad is not a traditional person. Um, and which is something I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's something that I actually appreciate my dad for, because um, his his openness to different cultures was a great influence for myself and my sister when we were growing up, because we were able to like open ourselves up to other cultures as well. I am half Filipino. We had a lot of Filipinos around us when we were growing up. So like I learned like the Filipino tradition. So I know like all the cultural stuff that you have to do to elders and things like that, eat the food. I've eaten rice with my hands, which is a traditional way of eating rice.
Yeah.
So, um, and that's because I had like, my dad was very open to, us mixing. My closest friends were Indonesian, Egyptian, I mean, Taiwanese. And they always encouraged, I and my sister to like, mix with other people. And so I was even educated in an international schools, which, made it even more interesting because I got to see like a lot of kids from different countries and relate to them. And one thing about international school is that cultural day is like so important. So people will come with their cultural attires and stuff. And and one thing about me is that I love getting to know people and getting to know about um, who they're like, what they're about, what their culture is like, and stuff like that. So that also helped like influence mine. I was born in Turkey, so like I had a lot of Turkish, Middle Eastern influence as well. So I could be listening to Arabic music, and I'm like, oh, this feels like home. So yeah, it's just literally me being born in this space where I could mix with a lot of people from different cultures, and also having family like my parents who were very open to us mixing with other people. And they also mixed with other people as well. So they were like a living example to adopting all these different cultures and stuff. So my dad was also very particular about creating your own culture. So the way I and my sister we were raised is so different from other people. And we can't, if you're to ask me, okay, how much of it had the Nigerian influence or how much of it has the Filipino influence? It's very hard to say, right? Because my parents were like, hey, let us just independently think of how we would like to raise these kids and what kind of traditions or cultures that we would like to have, right? So it's just because that's how my parents were. They weren't fixed on a culture or tradition. They were and that's helped us become more open-minded, when it came to like meeting people from different places. In fact, I didn't get to know much about Nigeria until I came here. So we had to learn the national anthem. We had to learn a lot of all these other things. We had to learn about the different cultures. So when I was in uni, we have this compulsory course called GNS. So in 200 level, they had this book about Lagos and its environs. And I literally read that big book. And I now have an idea. When I read the book, I was like, oh, no wonder my classmate acts like this, because they're from, Ikeja, they're from Ikorodu. Like, that's how they're like. So, okay, it now makes sense. So it was very easy for me to understand all these different cultures because I already had the foundation that my parents laid down for me. Please, it doesn't mean that, it's only kids that move to or live outside Nigeria that have this kind of experience. No, because
Yeah, sure.
I can tell you for a fact, I've met some mixed Nigerians. Like, I've met Nigerian Turkish, I've met Nigerian British, I've met Nigerian, Nigerian Germans. And like, I could tell you for a fact that they weren't like us, right? They weren't like I and my sister.
Yeah.
Like, you could literally tell that, oh my gosh, these guys are like real full on Nigerians, or like, why are they behaving this way? It's just so weird. And it's not because they were brought up in another country. Literally, it's like, I would associate my upbringing or my exposure to my parents being the kind of people who were like not fixed on a particular culture, or, or they weren't like, oh, it has to be this way. They were very open to creating their own kind of culture because they understood that, hey, they're different, right? Like, they're just not fully attached to one way or another. So my mom is Filipino, but there's some things that maybe a Filipino would do that she'll just be like, what type of nonsense is this? We won't do that. Or my dad too, he'll just be like, these Nigerian self, we won't do this. So they literally created their own culture for us, and that helped us adapt. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, when you came to Nigeria, did you like integrate easily? Did you find it hard to like understand people and like the culture here?
Oh my gosh. So when I first came to Nigeria, it was shocking because I didn't expect it. Like, I had a picture of Nigeria in my head, right? And it didn't look like the way I had imagined it. So personally, for me, I love people, right? I'm just this people person. I just love people. So I was intrigued by, the different kind of people that are in Nigeria. I had no idea that there was anything like a tribe. So it was interesting to get to know more about how things work here. It was a little bit difficult to integrate in the beginning because Nigerians also have they have a preconceived belief around kids who come from abroad, right? I didn't understand that at first until later on when I started doing my inner reflections. A lot of Nigerians believe that when you are mixed or you're white, there's a particular way you behave. You probably judge us Africans. It's like sometimes they'll even say things like, why are you even here? This place is terrible. It's a shithole. I mean, if I were you, I wouldn't even come to Nigeria. And so it was a little difficult because they had this preconceived notion of how mixed kids were like. They saw mixed kids as people who are very saucy, who see themselves as the next best thing, who see themselves almost near to royalty. So that's what they thought that's how they think mixed kids are like. I know some people are like, nah, that's not true. But really, literally deep down, they'll just be like, oh, you don't have any problem. You're mixed. You have another passport. You can go anywhere you want to. Da, da, da. But, and so I and my sister, we had a lot to do. We had a lot of work to do to literally break through that bias. It was later on when people because we just remained ourselves, right? I was just myself. I was just, my normal, cheerful weird self, and they just realize that, hey, these people, they don't fit our bias about mixed kids. They're very different. And so when they drop those like bias at the door and they start to get to know us a little better, it was really easy to integrate. So, but like the major issue that I had personally was like literally breaking through that bias, which wasn't so difficult, but like it was glaring nevertheless. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are interesting things, and it was nice to like hear about how you integrated, because there's this thing in Nigeria about people coming from abroad. There's certain expectation and kind of view of them in like the Nigerian space. So it's interesting that you talked about that. So I have like three questions. One thing I want to ask is like for people who are listening right now, and they probably they don't really have much knowledge about this crypto stuff, like, because it's confusing to them. Where do I start from? Do you have like a go-to place for them? Like, just go check this thing out if you are confused, and like, okay, this is where you can start your own investment journey in cryptos too. Like a really simple thing for them to like use or learn from.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's a really good question. So, I personally, I'm very risk averse, and I'm a little wary about trying different type of technology. I know that I've been into like technology for a long time, but when it comes to things that relate to like money and stuff, like I get a little bit apprehensive. So, but what I did notice when I got fully into the crypto space is that you need to just find a simple platform that makes it really easy for you to acclimatize with the technology, right? Because the only way you're going to learn about cryptocurrencies is if you own one. If you go through the process of downloading an app or registering, buying, your first crypto, selling your first crypto, sending your first crypto to a friend, receiving your first crypto, that's the only way you actually learn very well. But for me, what made it really easy for me, I would say, is using a simple app. I downloaded Luno, I downloaded Quidax. But what made getting into crypto easy for me was when I downloaded BitNob. So BitNob is, an app that allows you to invest and save in Bitcoin. But the reason why I just found that this app so easy to use. And I'm not saying this because like I'm the host of the Knobcast or I work for BitNob, right? Like this is way before I started, being a part of the BitNob team. I saw how easy this app was, from the funding to, the sending to the receiving, to the saving, to the creating of plans. It was just so easy for me. And because when the platform is easy for you to use, you are more encouraged to use it. And the more you use it, the more you learn about how it works. So start with a very simple platform. So for me, BitNob was like the easiest platform to use. Another thing that you could do is to listen to podcasts. So if you're like an auditory learner, maybe listening to a podcast could be helpful, like listening to conversations or stories about people who started using cryptocurrencies from their own perspective, and just hearing people talk about it actually helps you know a little more about how they work. So a friend of mine, so when I was, so I'm the host of the Knobcast, right? So it's a Bitcoin focused podcast. And a friend of mine reached out to me and she said that, oh, I really enjoyed listening to the past couple of episodes of the Knobcast because I know nothing about cryptocurrency. I know nothing about Bitcoin. But the more I listened to you guys, you and your guests speak, the more it started making sense to me. It's like with every episode, I feel more confident and more encouraged to use Bitcoin and to try it out for myself. So that is something that a friend told me. So maybe like listening to podcasts could be your way of learning more about Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. So for me, of course, I'll recommend the Knobcast. And what's beautiful about that podcast is that it was specifically tailored for Africans. So we're looking at Bitcoin from the African perspective and how people in Africa use Bitcoin. So it's very different from you listening to how the Americans use Bitcoin or the British people use Bitcoin. Where now this podcast allows you to just hear it from the African perspective. So it's a fairly new podcast. So it's like you don't have so many episodes to catch up with. We're going to release the 5th episode next week. So like you can just start listening from episode 1 all the way to the episodes that we have so far. And you could just use that like a sort of like a mini course. So like every week, write down what you learned, share your knowledge with, or the little tidbits you were able to gain on Twitter. So like Twitter is a great place where you can also learn about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. That's where I learned a lot of my knowledge on Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. I made friends with someone. He was on my podcast episode. His name is TK. We call him TK. So TK was the one who told me about Cardano and how it works. And I had him on my podcast where we spoke about Cardano, NFTs, and DeFi. So it was during our conversation on a Twitter space that I started learning about Cardano, and I learned how to invest in my first Cardano. So like literally engaging with people on Twitter really helped a lot. Then the next resource is Twitter Spaces. So you might feel like, oh, this is a lot of information. Like I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. I don't even know where to start. How will I contribute in these discussions? So the truth is that when you are in the midst of people talking about these things a lot, you tend to pick up on things. And one thing I really love about the tech space generally is that if you have a question, no matter how stupid the question is, you can always ask this question, and people will be happy to help you. So one beautiful thing about the crypto space also is that they are very accommodating for the newbies, because they know that this is very new. It takes time for us to know about the crypto space, and everyone in the crypto space is open to, strengthening the ecosystem. And one of the ways to strengthen the ecosystem is to make this information available to people. So like join Twitter Spaces, ask questions. There will always be somebody who will explain, and even like they would even follow you, send you a DM, and make sure that you understand this thing. So like I feel that it's a lot easier to learn from people, like through interacting with people, because when you learn through interacting with people, the information sticks. So like those are the resources that I would recommend. Some people like to go like real heavy, learn, get a course or all that stuff. There's nothing wrong about getting a course. But when you start thinking of, oh, I need to, sign up to this course, it gives you like school vibes, like, oh, geez, I don't want to go to school again. I'm done with that shit. But like when you're like asking a friend or asking someone online, like, could you please explain what the blockchain means? They'll be happy to explain to you. And it's like your friend telling you what something is or explaining something to you. So yeah, those are the resources that I would recommend.
Yeah, sure. Those are really interesting things, and I hope that people pick on that and act on them as well. So my second question is for you right now. I know we talked about a lot of things, so I don't know if there's something we missed in our conversation, or there's something you want to talk about, or there's something you want to say to my audience, or something you want to like inform people about. I want you to say that thing, or we could talk about it.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. Yeah. And thank you for that. So I don't think we missed anything, but I just really want to re-emphasize the aspect about, working on your money mindset. Like you can do all the right things, right? Because, okay, let's just be honest, right? Our generation, like, we want to have money, right? Like, I think we're even more ambitious when it comes to money than, our fathers and forefathers, right? We want to have this money. We want to live a comfortable life. Most of us don't want to do a 9 to 5 anymore. We want to start driving good cars. We're tired of, always complaining about bills. And then we have some of us too who work very hard because they want a really good life. They work very hard but they're not making any money. They're broke before the month ends. Like, some of them are like, I'm so tired of borrowing from people. And the way you can solve this problem, that's if you're there, the way that you can solve this problem is by working on your money mindset. And it says, like, I used to do really like crazy shit to work on my money mindset. When I was doing my NYSC, you know those kaki now, like, you have pockets you have pockets on your legs, like close to your ankle, right? You have that lower pocket. So I used to put 1,000 naira inside that pocket. And when I get off the bus, around, so for those who are like in Lagos, you probably know what I'm talking about. When like when you're coming from, that bus where that space where a Giga bus stops and you just walk down, Computer Village. I used to walk down that road and just imagine myself buying stuff with the 1,000 naira in my pocket. And I'll just go and be like, oh, I can buy that book. Ooh, I could buy this jewelry. Ooh, I could buy this. So I was literally mentally shopping, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it sounds crazy, but the more I did it, the more I felt more empowered the more I felt more empowered in the area of finances. I didn't have all that money to buy all the things that I was imagining myself buying as I was walking down the street. But this practice alone made me more conscious about how powerful I can be, and that I have what it takes to buy these stuff, right? And that's like a really great money practice. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that I had to practice and practice and practice and work on my money mindset like every single day. Like, are there times in my life right now that I get scared that I am investing or scared of putting money somewhere? Yes, there are times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make this payment. Like, shit, that's a lot of money. Like, oh my gosh, it's another time. So I buy shares. Like, there's this certain amount of money that I'm committed to when I'm buying shares. And like, with the dollar, like the naira to dollar rates, it became 6 figures, instead of like 5 figures. Now it's like 6 figures. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm always afraid, like, oh my gosh, will like this bank shut down my account because this is a lot of money? Like, am I okay? I still get those fears. So I'm not perfect. I still get those fears, but every time I get them, I work on it. And I work on those money beliefs. So many of us are just sitting down and we're like, oh, I want the money to come. Many of us work hours and hours and are like, why isn't this money coming? But I just want to like let people know that when you start working on your money mindset, and it's easy, right? It's easy to work on it. The first thing you need to do is to identify the limiting belief, right? So for example, for the longest time, my major limiting belief in my business was, oh, these foreigners, they won't like my payment system because it's not easy. It's not as easy as using PayPal. PayPal doesn't work in Nigeria. It only works one way. So
you can only pay.
Exactly. So like, and I didn't want to have to like, go through the back door and all that, because I was like, man, that thing is not safe. So I used to feel very bad when I gave out my like Flutterwave link for people to pay me. And I'll just be like, my clients are going to feel like they'll be turned off working with me because, I'm using Flutterwave instead of using PayPal. And that was like a huge, limiting belief for me. But the minute I was like, what, like, are you out of your mind? I started working on my limiting belief, and I started telling myself that, look, my clients want to work with me, even if they have to, like, they're willing to go to any length to make sure that I get paid. The more I kept telling myself this, and the more I started working on my mindset around this, I started getting more clients. And that was it. Like, I didn't promote, like, I didn't increase my promotions. Nope. I wasn't promoting shit. I didn't use any ads. I didn't work harder. In fact, I worked lesser hours on my business, and people just like reached out to me and be like, hey, I heard you were doing this. I'd like to hire you. And it was all because I shifted that limiting belief. So, like, ask yourself right now, like, what is that thought, or what's that belief that is, preventing you from earning more money? Is it that you're afraid that, you're going to spend your money on some dumb shit? Work on that belief. Do you feel like, oh, if I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be arrogant? Because there are some people who don't want to be rich because they believe that rich people are bad. Then change that belief and be like, hey, even if all the rich people are bad, I will be the first good rich person. And so just shift that belief. And the best way to shift the belief is literally call out that bullshit. Like, tell yourself that, hey, that thought that I had is utter bullshit. And the minute you start, calling yourself out on your bullshit, you now replace that limiting belief with a positive one, and keep reminding yourself until you tell yourself that, hey, this is actually true. And that's how you're going to shift your belief. And trust me when I say this, because this thing has happened over and over and over and over and over again. When you shift your limiting beliefs, you start seeing money flowing in. It won't make any sense. You'll go to the bus stop. Someone you've never met before will be like, hey, let me pay for your bus fare. Don't worry about it. Or you're hungry, and before you're even like, let me go and buy something, someone will be like, hey, I brought lunch for you. Like, you'll start seeing these little changes, these little things happen simply because you shifted your mindset. You shifted that belief. You shifted the negative energy around money. That's why I tell people to date their money, because, I mean, like, this relationship is continuous. It's not going to end until you die.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
Yeah. So that's just it.
Yep. I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad that you commented. And you talked about all these things. So, one question that I like to ask before I end the conversation on the podcast is a weird question, but like everybody gets.
I like
to
weird
answer that
questions.
Podcast.
I like weird questions.
What is the meaning of life?
Wow, that's deep shit right there. What is the meaning of life? Okay, so my perspective of life, especially a good life, is one where you are at peace with yourself and you don't have to do, be, or say anything in order to enjoy what is good, and in order to enjoy, literally existing. So what do I mean by this? Most times when you talk to people, because I talk to people a lot, most times when you talk to people, they say that life is hard. Like, oh, it's all about, adulting. Like, this is just how we adult, right? We enjoy our youth, and then by the time we hit the workforce, it's all hustle. It's all suffering, gonna pay bills, life is just gonna suck until we are old and we die, right? But I believe that the meaning of life should be more than that. It should be more of enjoying and being happy and being at peace just simply by existing. So that's what life means to me. Just literally enjoying and being happy, and like literally being at peace with who you are and what you have to offer in this world. So I'm a great advocate for, you can be abundant, or you can live an abundant life, doing the stuff that you love. The stuff that you love could be as crazy as collecting shoes, or as crazy as tasting wine, or as crazy as like collecting old phones and talking about them. Like whatever and that's why I'm a huge fan of social media, because they make this kind of life, or my definition of life, so much easier to do. If you could be interested in art, or you can be interested in coding, or whatever it is, and put it out there in social media and literally enjoy who you are, as like who you are, your authentic true self, just by being you. Yeah. So that's what life means to me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really nice to hear your perspective, and it's great to hear your own thoughts. I like to ask this question because I like to know how people think. And then I just feel like if you ask this kind of existential questions, you can really capture people's mind frames. And yep, that is all my questions. And I really had a nice time on this podcast. I learned a lot of things. Some people, there are some episodes where I talk with people and I don't really learn much. Basically, it's because maybe I'm already familiar with what you're talking about, or it's just like the boring stuff to me. But like, I really enjoy this episode and I learned a lot of new things, and I do hope that a lot of other people learned a few things as well. So if you want to talk about where people can find you on social media, I'll also add your links to the description, sure. But like, if you want to talk about that as well, you could also do that.
Awesome. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm using Twitter more now. But you can get to see how I live my life and my perspective in life. You could get more of that on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram at Mary_Imasuen, that's at Mary_Imasuen. You can get to see my Instagram stories, and I put there like what I do in my day to day. You get to see work processes, what's on my mind. And then, so those two basic places. So if you want to, hang out and chat with me, you can talk to me on Twitter, same handle, Mary_Imasuen. Or if you want to see my life, what I do, how I run my life, my business, my work, you can check me out on Instagram as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Definitely. Thanks for giving us that information. I know this was a really long talk. So something I'm going to do is that I'm going to put timestamps to help listeners in their listening. So, it was really nice talking with you. I had an amazing time. I learned a lot of new things, and I really hope that we can do this again in another time in the future. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to the end. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me if you're new, subscribe if you're new, and don't forget about my AMA episode. Ask your questions on hintedneuron.com/ask. Anything at all, just feel free to ask me and I'll answer them on that episode. That's it for me this week, and on to then, stay curious.